Test, test, test. All right. So this is going to be Canvas. This is what it's going to look like when you go into it. This is our course statistics. We're going to meet from 5:30 to 6:45 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. These are my office hours. They're posted there. Most of what we're going to do is going to be in the modules section on the left-hand side up there. So if you click on modules, right now I'm just trying to give you an overview of what's inside of Canvas, right? I'm not trying to teach you everything about Canvas, just where I'm going to put things. Is that clear? So we're going to go deeper into a few of these things in a moment. The top file is the syllabus. If you notice, I haven't handed out a paper copy of the syllabus. Is that true? I'm trying to save a little bit of paper here, okay? So the syllabus is there. You can pull it up online. If you want to print it, you can go to the library and try to print it. If you need a hard copy of it and you want me to make one and you can't get it, let me know and I'll make a hard copy of it for you, okay? But we will go over a few sections of those in the electronic form, just so you know what to expect with this course and how I run it. That way, if you want to leave, you're welcome to. Does that make sense? All right. The calendar, this is going to give the sections. It's going to be one piece of paper, one page. It's going to give the sections that I'm going to cover, and it's going to give the days of the tests. So eventually I'll probably print that out, maybe next class or the following, and give you a copy of that. Is that clear? Because that's going to be a critical component. Next are my office hours again, just in case you want to print it out easily and stick it in your books, you know when I'm around. And then this is different. This is the list of the homework problems. These are the problems that I'm going to have you do for every single section that we cover, okay? So that's a list of them. You can print it out on one nice page and have that there for you. Okay, so far? So these are where things are, not what it contains. So here, this is my math lab. Raise your hand if you used my math lab before. Raise your hand high. So a lot of you have used my math lab before. How many of you hate my math lab? Raise your hand. How many of you hate it? Fantastic. Roll your hand. How many of you love my math lab? Raise your hand. A couple. So the beautiful thing about this is you have an option of doing the problems out of the textbook, right? Old school. You do the problems out of the exercises. So those of you that hate my math lab, this is your option, right? Or you can do them out of my math lab. Does that make sense? Either way, this is how you're going to register for my math lab. Is that clear? You click this thing right here, and when you try to register for it, it gives you the name of the course that you have that you're going to register for. This is the course ID right here, my last name with those numbers, and then you'll have it set up. Is that clear? So for those of you that want to do the problems out of the textbook, I'm going to start assigning homework probably next class. So if you don't have a book or you're waiting on to rent it and they're shipping it to you or something like that, you can always set up the My Math Lab and use the ebook in there to do your homework until you get your book. There's a 14-day free trial. Make sense?
So, if you're gonna use my math lab as the homework, how would you want us to do that?
We'll get to that in a little bit, okay? So how the homework happens will be in a little bit. For now, in your mind, I want you to know that you can use My Math Lab or the textbook, and either one of those for homeworks. And then if it's going to take a while for you to get the textbook or whatever you have, even if it takes a while for you to get money for the My Math Lab code, you get a 14-day free trial. So those are your takeaways right now, and I'll answer that question a little bit, okay? Everybody understand? Give me a thumbs up if you understand what I just said. Beautiful.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
For the textbook, is it like a certain year? It doesn't matter, right? It's just the same.
Yeah, we got to be a little bit careful with that because it changes. So you want to make sure you get this edition, which is the 13th edition. So make sure you get that. Yeah, you can. We'll talk about the book in a little bit, but for those of you, I think you can rent this for like $30, right? A student in another class said she rented it for $13, right? The My Math Lab cost like 120 or something like that. $128. So don't open it if you do that, right? So just so you know, do your shopping, and that's why I'm going to say these things tonight so you can make the decision that you want to do, right? All right, so this is My Math Lab and how you would register for that. Is that clear so far?
Yeah. The textbook is listed in the syllabus, yes?
The name of the textbook? Sorry, yeah. Yes, yeah. And I'll point that out in a little bit as well. We good so far? So this is, once again, just Canvas where things are, okay? Most of your questions will get answered when we go over the syllabus, all right? So right now, this is Canvas and where things are. So basically, you'll probably never go to these pieces very often, right? But this is where they are. The next thing we have here are data sets from the Triola 13th edition book. Are there lots of data sets here? Yeah. Are we going to use all these? No, we won't use all of them. But there are a couple that we'll use from time to time. Is that clear? A couple that you'll use from time to time. Basically, I'll assign a homework problem, and you're going to be trying to solve that homework problem, right? It's going to say something like, go to the appendix and calculate the mean of the births of so-and-so from this data set that's in the appendix, right? So most of you would flip to the back of the book to the appendix to look at that data set. Is that true? The only problem is they printed a part of the data set in this book. They didn't print the whole thing. Yes. So if they tell you to go to the appendix and use a data set, you're going to go here. Okay. When we get to that part, just have that in the back of your mind right now. It doesn't happen often, but if you're ever confused of where something comes from, you ask the question, right? And you'll be safe. Do you understand what I'm saying? Great. So most often you won't use a lot of that. The next section of things that we look at, you see here now, this section says question and answer. Sometimes I have students that email me and say, hey, Smoody, I can't figure out how to do number 5 from chapter 2.1. Can you help me out with it? And I might make a video or a PDF file and post it in there, some hints, and then that way you all can look at that. Does that make sense? Does that sound cool? Good? Anybody care? Oh, all right. So basically, if you ask me questions, they will go in there as I get to them, right? If nobody emails me any questions ever, that'll be empty by the end of the semester. Is that clear? All right. If you are solving a problem and you check the back of the book and you get it wrong and you can't figure out what you did wrong, sometimes I have students take a picture of it and they send me an email with that picture attached. I can look at the work and write on top of it and send it back saying, oh, you didn't distribute a negative or something. Does that make sense? So that's a personal thing. So that's a one-on-one email that'll get sent between you and I through Canvas, right? So I won't post stuff like that there. That'll be for videos and PDFs for everybody. Is that clear? Or like how to do something in Excel. Any questions? The next thing you see here are chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10, right? So as we cover material in these lectures, I'm going to post them here. You'll notice next to chapter 1, you see that triangle is pointing down, right? That means that's all the information that's in that section has been expanded, but there's nothing in there, true? So after I finish tonight, I'll produce the videos and then eventually upload it to here with the PDF file or the PowerPoints of what I wrote down, so you can go back and view these things if necessary. Is that clear? Any questions? So that's where things are in Canvas and what I will use. So this will really grow as we go through, right? And then eventually I'll post grades and stuff in there as well. Any questions on that? We don't even do all of that. Yep. So we only do a couple of sections of chapter 10. This book contains a lot more than we cover. Even out of chapter 5, I think we only do 1 or 2 sections. We don't cover all of that. So it's just bits and pieces of most of it. Remember, this is an introduction to stats class, introduction. So we are learning some fundamental tools that you will see. This is not like algebra. The one thing I can tell you in all the majors that I heard you all say out there, I am 100% certain that at some point in time in the rest of your degree program, you're going to see statistics. I can't say that about algebra, but I guarantee with statistics it'll be that way, okay?
I have a question. If you have the MyLab code for college algebra, can you still use it for stats? Can you add the...
Good question. So you can have the same account, but the MyMathLab codes that you purchase are for an individual and a book. So that's connected to a book. So if you had stats last semester and you used this Triola book and you used MyMathLab, you will not need to purchase another code. You should be able to use that same code. But if it was a different course or hence a different book, then yeah, you would need to purchase it again. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Any questions? Other questions? So up here at the top then, I want to go over the syllabus with you. We're doing okay on time. I'm sorry we have to go through all of this, but I got to make sure everybody's on the same page so you know how I run the class. If you don't want to stay, you don't have to, right? But if you don't have to stay in the class, you have to stay today, yeah? So the syllabus, let's go over a little bit of that, which is that top page. We'll go over that quickly, and then we'll get into some stats. So here we meet Tuesdays and Thursdays, 5:30 to 6:45, 3-credit course. My office is room D625. Sometimes I'm in my office or I'll be in the ASC, one or the other. Sometimes if there's 5 or 6 people that come to my office and we have time, I might just go down to the ASC and have a little study group or something. Does that make sense? These are my office hours when I selected them. Notice we meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I have a class before this, so the best I could really do is get office hours here, which is most of you probably work or have other things going on, but I try to get this stuff close as possible to what we have here, okay? If these office hours don't work for you and you need help, let me know and maybe we can figure out and add some different times to have some study groups. Make sense? If everybody in the class got together and you wanted me to come on Friday mornings to solve problems with you for an hour and a half, and a lot of interest is there, we can make that happen probably, okay? But I'm not going to go there on Fridays and sit by myself like what usually happens. Does that make sense? All right. So if you need extra help, let me know. If you can't come to campus but you're still interested, we might be able to do something virtually, where I meet on the through the computer, and you guys can ask questions that way. Make sense? Everybody with me? Course description, I'm going to let you read over that. There's no point in me covering it all right now because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But these are basically the chapters and sections that we're going to cover, the information that we'll learn out of those, and hence where questions will come from your test. The next thing we want to talk about is the required textbook. How many have been to the bookstore to get the materials for this course?
They ran out of books and they told me that they don't sell books.
They ran it. So the math department made a decision that they're only requiring the My Math Lab code now. Okay. And I guess it's $128 or something like that. So that's all that they are, quote unquote, requiring. That doesn't mean that you cannot get this book on your own somehow and use this. If you have a friend that used this book last semester, you're welcome to use that book, right? If he or she will lend it to you. Is that clear? But the point is, you need to have the My Math Lab code or a hard copy of the textbook, one or the other. Is that right? And primarily, that's going to be used for you to read the section so you understand what's going on and then to do homework problems. All right. The electronic version of the textbook is in My Math Lab as well. So if you want to read the book, you can read the electronic version if you only want to have this. Like I said, some people told me they were renting the book for 13 bucks or 30 bucks. I've heard various numbers like that for the semester. Okay. Questions? I probably cost a couple $100 to buy it. Did anybody buy it? Probably costs a couple $100 to buy it. So one way or other, you need one or the other of these to do your homework. Once again, there's like a 14-day trial that you can have for that. So you can start working on the homework if it's going to take a while for you to get your book. But I encourage you to figure out that quickly. The worst thing you can do in this class is to not do your homework, okay? The worst thing you can do is to procrastinate. Any questions on that?
When you just buy the textbook, how do you get hand in like the
Good.
just get a piece of paper?
So I'll talk about the homework in a little bit, but either way, if I say do problem 5 out of the book, you're going to go to the problem 5. You go to the book, you have a piece of paper, you solve the problem, you circle your answer, you check your answer in the back of the book, make sure you're right. If you're wrong, you got to figure out what's wrong and do it right. Yes? So that's that way. And then I would tell you when to turn it in, right? If you're doing it on My Math Lab, the computer screen will have the question on it. You're going to read it. You're going to have a piece of paper. You're going to solve the problem on paper. Then you're going to circle your answer. You put your answer in here. You hit check, and it tells you whether you're right or wrong. If you're right, that's your work for that question. If you're wrong, you got to erase and try it again. Make sense? And then I'll say something like, okay, I'm going to collect the homework for that problem next class. So those that do it out of the book are giving me the piece of paper with their problem on it. And those of you that did it in My Math Lab, you already see the score you have on your screen, right? It got correct, but you're handing in that work for that problem. And if that work's got to support your answer that you have there. Does that answer your question? And I'll show you how those problems are connected here as we go through the semester a little bit, okay? Does that answer? Other questions?
So we have to like then work the class even if we do it on.
Yep. Yeah, so that's different than those of you that had My Math Lab before. You probably didn't have to turn in work, right? And I'm requiring that you turn in work for those problems, whether it's My Math Lab or the book. And my reasoning for that is when I give you my tests are pencil and paper, right? They're not on the computer, so they're pencil and paper. So you're going to write out your work and show me your work and do your answer on paper. So if you're used to writing those steps out, when you get ready to take my test, then you'll be used to doing that. Make sense? I don't want you, some students in the past where I just had My Math Lab would click the answer till they get it right, and then they would do the next problem and click till they get it right, and or figure out patterns, and they don't really know what they're doing. So then when they took the paper test, they failed, right? So here I'm requiring you to work so you hopefully learn how to do it and why you're doing certain things. Does that make sense? So that's my reasoning for it. Make sense? Others? Good question. Other questions? So required textbook or the My Math Lab code, one or the other. You also are going to have a scientific calculator. You're not going to be able to use your cell phone as a calculator. This is the calculator that you're going to have to use, okay? If you have some other ones, you can ask me if it's going to work, but this is the calculator that's there that we will use for it, okay? You won't be able to use your phone on the tests, so please make sure you're used to using this when you do your homework. Get whatever you're going to use right away. If you have something different, just ask me after class, okay? It probably will work. I'm, excuse me, I'm not interested in having you buy a bunch of computers, but use this the whole time, right? On all your homework and everything else, because you have to put parentheses in a certain way and all that, and I want to make sure you're used to that, yes? You don't want to think you're doing it right and get to the test and do it wrong. Any questions? I think that calculator is $8 or something, $10. Is that right? Close enough. Homework, there's going to be a homework section for every single, a homework assignment for every single section that we cover. The homework is going to count for 7% of your final grade. Once again, I told you already, you have to show me your work for this, whether you do it in My Math Lab or not. The way I want this done is, here's a piece of paper that you're going to have that you're going to do your work on. It's going to be stapled in the upper left-hand corner. You're going to have your name up here in the upper right-hand corner. You're going to have chapter like 1.1 homework there, right? And I assign, let's say, problem number 1. You do your work, you put your box around the answer, check and make sure you got it right. Yes? And then this is problem, let's say I assign problem number 5. You do your work, box around the answer, check and make sure it's right. If it's wrong, erase it and figure out what you did wrong. Yes? Is that clear so far? So the section gets stapled together. So that way, when you get to chapter 1.2, you have this stapled, you have your name, you have chapter 1.2, and then you have the problems worked out there. Is that clear? You don't have to rewrite the whole word problem and all that stuff down. You're just working the solution. You understand? And show me the work. Yes? And then when I will tell you when I want to collect that. Usually what I'll do is the homeworks will be due when you take the test, usually, right? So if test number 1 is going to cover all of chapter 1 and all of chapter 2, those homeworks cannot be turned in after that time because those homeworks are the things that get you ready for that test. Is that clear? So that's when it'll be due in general. However, this semester I might collect a few problems, different problems earlier before the test because students tend to want to procrastinate, right? So if I leave it to them to wait till the day before to do it, they're going to wait till the day before to do it, okay? So this is the worst thing you can do in this class, and I'm really encouraging you to stay up with the homework all the time and continue doing it, all right? But I might collect some randomly throughout. Is that clear? Now let me ask you this. Some of you hate homework. This is where most of your learning is going to happen is through the homework. I don't give a practice test. I don't give a review packet. I don't give you problems that are on it and then solve them in class the time before, right? So the question is, my philosophy is a little bit different. How do you get ready for your homework? You study, or how do you get ready for your test? You study your what? Homework. If you know your homework problems backwards and forwards, why you did everything the way you did, that's what the test is all about. Is that clear? Sometimes I might put a challenge question or two on there, but usually, even if you got that wrong, but you understand the homework backwards and forwards, you could get an A. Is that understood?
How do we know if our homework's correct?
So good question. So most of the time, if you do it out of the textbook, most of the time I assign odd problems, and the answers to the odd problems are in the back of the book. So you can check that way. If it's an even problem, you could always ask me, hey, Smoody, is this correct? But there's few of those, okay? So most of them are odd. If you're in My Math Lab, that tells you if you're right or wrong, and it has helped me solve this and all that. Does that answer your question? Good question. Other questions? Yes.
Like if you're just struggling with one of the problems, like can you send both of the question like do the thing that it was in Canvas, like send it by email or something?
Say one more time.
Like I remember when he shows the Canvas thing and he said if you're struggling in some of the like questions you can send it easier, you can like solve it by the question 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Would that like include the homework questions or like a separate like
The homeworks I can do, yeah. Is that what you're asking me?
yeah.
So like yeah, some of the homework problems are just weird, right? So I cover stuff in class, I lecture, and then the homework problem might be a little bit weird or strange, or it might be a little bit more challenging where you would have had to read the book or do a help me solve this or something like that, right? So when you have something like that, you're completely lost on yes, you ask. So I help you work through these things. It's not, if you're looking at a problem, a homework problem, and you have no clue how to do it, and a month goes by, or a month shouldn't go by, right? But if a month goes by and you still don't know how to do it, that's wrong approach, right? Try it a few times, see what you can do, and if you don't get it, you need help, and you ask me or the ASC math tutor, whatever it is, right? But your responsibility is make sure you know how to do those homework problems backwards and forwards. You know the why you did certain things. That's what gets you ready for the test. Make sense? So I'm okay helping with those, right? Other questions? So homework. If you don't do any of your homework, what's your homework grade going to be? Zero. But if you're Einstein and you get 100% on everything else, what's your final average in the class going to be?
A 93.
A 93. Is that good?
Technically, yes.
You should say yeah. Everybody say yeah. 93 is an A, isn't it? You want A's, right? Or you want a 99? I don't know. So that would be pretty good, right? What do you think the chances of that happening are if you don't do any homework, right? Especially when I tell you my philosophy is you do the homework to get ready for the what? Test. Okay. So that's the approach we take. So whatever you got to do to understand that homework, make sure you got it. Okay. And my suggestion is for those of you that struggle with math and statistics, my math lab is a good route because there's problems where they can help walk you through it. Most of the students that I saw last semester that were high success rates did my math lab. And they didn't just do the my math lab homework problems once, they did them 2 or 3 times. They repeated the problems over and over again and did similar exercises till they mastered it. Does that make sense? Sometimes just one shot doesn't mean you know how to do it, correct? If I bake one cake, that doesn't mean you want me to bake your wedding cake. Is that true? Yes? I hope not. I don't think you should think about that anyway. So let's go on. Quizzes, before I dig too deep. Quizzes are going to count 8% of your grade. Quizzes will be in class or take home. I don't usually do pop quizzes. Is that good or bad? You think you would say thank you. Oh, cool. Or smile or something. I need a little feedback here. So unless you want pop quizzes. No, okay. So if it's a take-home quiz, I'll just show up with a piece of paper. I'll give you the paper. I'll say this is a take-home quiz. You need to do it. And I'll say bring it back to me next class. Or I'll say take a picture of it and upload it to Canvas by Friday or something like that. Make sense? If it's an in-class quiz, I will let you know the class before usually. Hey, we got an in-class quiz on Thursday. It's going to be on chapter 1.1. It's going to have 3 questions. I might give it in the beginning, middle, or end of class. All right. So you need to make sure you show up on time and stay the whole time in case I have to give it in the middle or the end and wherever it fits in the best. Is that clear? I don't do makeups on those, so you got to make sure you're here for that. True? You understand? Okay. If it's a take home and you missed the take home, I just showed up and I handed it out and you didn't get a take home, you can always have a friend or a buddy get a copy for you. You can come to my office hours the next day and get a copy from me. You can send me an email and say, hey, Smoothie, I saw we have a take home quiz. Can you email me a copy? You understand? So all of those are options. However, what's not an option is you showing up when it's due and saying, I wasn't there last time. Can I do the quiz? Do you get it? Okay. Questions? Tests, there's going to be 4 tests. Each one of those is worth 15% of your final grade. So this is a big chunk of your final grade, right? 60%. Is that true? These 4 tests that you're going to have to do. How are you going to get ready for these tests? Homework and quizzes, right? Homework and quizzes. Final exam covers everything and it's going to be worth 25% of your final grade, right? And it covers what? Everything. So my thought process here is like kind of like a pyramid where you study all here, the homeworks and the quizzes is pretty broad. Then I narrow the scope down for these tests, right? These tests, rather than doing 200 problems for homework, now I pick out probably 25 of those 150 problems or 200 problems that's going to be tested on the test, right? And then we do that 4 times for those tests. And then you take those 4 tests, 100 problems or so, you narrow the focus down to like a 25 or 30 question final exam. Does that make sense? So you have to study and it's just like a pyramid as you go through it. I like having a final exam because I know some of you want to be a CPA or a lawyer. There's a lot of these tests that you have to take. When I was doing that cybersecurity degree, I had a law class and that professor, we had to come in on a Saturday and do a 4-hour test. A 4-hour test. By the end of the thing, I was like a zombie, you know, and the average was really bad. So I think it's important that we start to train you all in how to take exams, right? How many take exams in classes so far? How many was it just waived? Did you have to, like, if you got an A, you don't have to take it, right?
Yeah.
So that can happen as well. But here, I want everybody to take it, and I want you to study, and I want you to do your best on it. Once again, how do you get ready for the final exam, though? You're going to study the tests, right? Homework, there'll be too many, right? There's hundreds and hundreds of homework problems, so you'll study your tests for that final. So it's like a pyramid. Homework to get ready for the tests, tests to get ready for the final. Do you understand? All right. Questions? So when you look at this right here, homework counts for how much? Quizzes count for what? 8%. If I add those together, what do I get? 15%, which is the same that each one of these tests is worth, isn't it? So when you look at this, the homework's done at home, the quizzes are done at home. Can you get some help on the homeworks? You can, right? So this is equivalent to you taking a take-home test pretty much, right? But the homeworks you know the answers for already, yes? You just have to figure out how the work goes with it. So I kind of reward you for that. That's a good chunk of points there, percentage-wise. Um, so please use that wisely and understand that you want to get as many points on the homework and quizzes so that when you go into this final exam, you don't need to get 100 on the final exam to pass the class. Is that going to stress you out? That's not good, right? You want to go into the final exam saying, oh, I only need to get 3 problems on this final right to get an A. Wouldn't that be, or to get a passing grade? Is that good? Yeah, that would be great. So keep that in mind. Any questions, concerns, comments? Next thing, I don't want to do that. Next thing, your letter grade is the traditional thing that you see most people do. So the A is the 90 to 100, 80 to 89, so on and so forth. Questions? What does this say right there?
No makeup test or quizzes or exams.
What does it say?
No makeups.
No makeups, okay? I'm not trying to be mean here, but this is my philosophy. If you all come and they got a test right now, today, right? And you don't feel ready for it, but you do the honorable thing and you come and take it and you're going to do your best on it. Yes? And then somebody else skipped today and they're going to come in on Thursday and say to me, can I take the makeup test because I didn't come in on Tuesday because I wasn't ready? And they take the test, but they talk to one of you all that took the test, learned everything that was on it, and then take the test and get an A. Is that fair to you all? Do you think so? A lot of you aren't answering. I don't think it's fair, right? That's terrible, yes? So I would be better off just giving you all a practice test so you guys have the practice test too. Does that make sense? But that just compounds things and is away from what I want to do. So I don't want to do any makeups for this, all right? Now, if there's a death in the immediate family and you got a note or the doctor says don't come to school because you're contagious and you're going to get everybody sick, get a doctor's note and maybe we can work that out, right? I'm going to tell you when the tests are. So if you have a business trip, maybe we can try to get you to take it early or something. You follow me? So that's kind of what I'm going to do. No makeups. My only problem with this approach, though, is this. What if you're driving to school and your car breaks down and this is like 10 minutes before the test starts and you can't get here and you studied for it? Is that cool? Can you retake the test? It's not a death in the family or doctor didn't say to stay home, right? So you can't get a note. Does that suck? That's terrible, right? And I would feel awful about it. But if I had the rule, I got the rule. Do you understand? And it's hard for me to make exceptions because the student can always make something up. Do you agree? So what I've done for that, or what I'm going to do for that now to try to compensate, there's still not going to be any makeups. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this right here, which is your final exam. And if you do better on one of these tests or quizzes, the quiz and homework thing, I'll replace that lowest group. Does that make sense? So that way, even if you all, nothing bad happens, quote unquote, bad happens to you, but let's just say you show up and take the test, but you weren't feeling well, or you had a bad day, right? Or you stubbed your toe, well, at least you can do better on the final exam and that'll replace it. So then that kind of everybody wins, right? If somebody's car breakdowns, that'll be taken care of. You all, well, the whole playing field will be even. Do you agree with that? Does that sound fair?
So the final exam grade replace homework or quiz grade.
Those will be bundled together. So it'll replace
So that replace both of
it'll
them.
replace one of the 15%.
Any one of the 15%.
One of the 15%. So either test 1, 2, 3, or 4, or combine homework quiz grade. Do you understand? Raise your hand if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
However, pretend I never told you that and don't count on that, right? Seriously, don't think that, don't count on that. Your job is to get as many points as possible, and I'm only going to do that replacement if it's better, yes? So pretend that's not going to happen. Don't think about that. Don't use that as a tool in your belt. You follow me? You take everything. Even if you're not ready for it, you come in and get a 2% on that test, and then hopefully you'll do better. You follow me? Because if you get a 0 on the final, at least you got a 2. Do you understand? I shouldn't have made those numbers up. Questions? All right, so usually, no questions. So method of instruction, usually I'm going to use this and write on this. I'll use PowerPoints as well, some for this, since this is statistics. If this doesn't work for you and you don't like it, let me know and we can try to do something else, right? I am doing these things to try to help you out the most. You're going to have to plan to study 6 to 9 hours a week. So if you're working full time and all that, please make sure you understand it's going to take time to learn this material, yes? So however, whatever you got to do, make sure you got that time allotted. Important college dates. This meets Tuesday, Thursday, so MLK will be Monday, so we won't miss that. We'll miss 2 days for spring break. Looking at this is the calendar that we have here. So when is test number 1 going to be?
Tuesday, January 29th.
Test number 2.
No, test 2, sorry. Thursday, February 29th.
Nope, you're right. So this 21st, right? And once again, you don't see review in front of those, yes? You don't see practice test handout in front of those, true? So this is where your homework will be necessary for you to get ready for those tests. What I will do is these tests will be on these days, but the day before or the 2 lectures before, I will tell you what sections will be on the test.
So what's going to be on the quiz? Is that going to be similar to what's going to be on the test?
So homework and quizzes help you get ready for these tests. So whatever I tell you, if I tell you sections 1.1 through 2.4 on this test, any quiz or homework you did for those problems and concepts I did in class and exercises, that's what helps you get ready for that test. Got it?
On average, how many questions are on the test?
On average, how many questions are on the test? I shoot for about 25 on each one of the tests. That's my goal. Obviously, I like to have more questions, right, than fewer. So if I can get more on there, I do that. But sometimes it's 25 will usually take you the entire period to do it. So that's usually enough.
We need scantrons.
No scantrons.
Do you have a time limit for the test?
Test is the period. So it's an hour and 15 minutes. Usually if there's no class after this, I will let you go like 10 minutes longer. So just keep that in mind on test day rather than ending at 6:45. If there's no class here and no problems, we might give you an extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You understand? Other questions? We can change the syllabus if something happens. Yes.
You hand us back our tests, right?
Yep. So I give you back your test. Why do I give them back to you?
Study with final students.
So after I give it back, you need to figure out whatever you did wrong and do that right away, right? And then that way, 2 months later, when the final exam is, you know what you did wrong and you know how to solve those problems, correct?
So if we get our tests back and we have a couple words wrong, can we go during your office hours to review the wrong questions?
Yep. Yep. So the question was, can I help you figure out what went wrong on the test? And the answer is absolutely yes. Okay. Others? Classroom conduct, be nice. Make sure you show up on time. Make sure you stay the whole time. If people that go in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out, it distracts me, right? So I lose my focus. It's hard for me. If you chit chat and talk to your neighbor all the time, that distracts me as well, okay? And it might distract your neighbor. You could be having a conversation. It could be even about the statistics, but it might distract the neighbor right next to you that's sitting by you and maybe is overwhelmed, right? Maybe this is very stressful for that person. So please make sure you come on time, stay the entire time, and don't go in and out. This class is an hour and 15 minutes, so don't be texting on the phone or doing social media and all that. This is hard enough. I think most of you would not like that if I said read chapters 1.1 and 1.2 and do those homework problems and we'll have a quiz on next class. Would you like me to teach like that? So my job is to translate to you, right? So pay attention when I'm doing that, right? If you're embedded in your phone, you're going to lose it, all right? The recordings and all that's a supplement to what we're doing here to try to help in case you miss something. So try to focus and stay with us.
Calculators and notes for that.
No calculators or notes on the tests. Nope. No. I'm sorry. Yes, calculators. You have.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I was about to drop this class right now. I was about to just.
So let's rewind that real quick and remind me to edit this out. So can you use calculators on tests? The answer is,
Yeah.
but what calculator is it? It's that TI,
The approved calculator.
yeah, the approved calculator or the one you check with me, okay? Notes, no, I don't usually have notes on the test. But if you know the homework backwards and forwards, that's not an issue, right? So if I don't narrow the scope or the focus down, that's where you start to need lots of notes and things like that because you don't have a clue what's going on. Does that make sense? So sorry about that. I'm trying to rush so I can start doing the math and I'm losing my mind. So I apologize. So stay on task, be nice, be polite to your neighbor. I don't want to spend too much time on there, but let's not cause problems and stay off the phone. It's only an hour and 15 minutes for 16 weeks. The biggest problem I have with cheating is if you have the answers to the odd number problems out of the book, could you just write the answers down on all the problems?
Yeah.
What am I going to give you for your grade for your homework?
Nothing.
0, right? Now, that happened some point in time, but I gave the student a 0, and the student was doing all the problems later on in the section on the calculator, and the calculator could do everything, right? Showed me that and was able to solve all the problems. Was the student doing it? But I want you to show me what? When I solve it on the computer like this and show you how to do it, that's how I expect you to do it in class. Make sense? A lot of you are going into different majors, and I want to make sure you're ready with whatever you're doing. So I'm not requiring the TI-84 fancy calculator. I am letting you do it my way so you can learn everything and how to do it. All right. This is what my goal is for that. So don't copy the answers down in the back of the book. Besides, you're going to fail the test if you do that, right? Because you're not going to know what's on there. Attendance policy, please show up for class and pay attention. If you missed 2 weeks in a row, I got to report you as a no-show. If that happens, you can come to my office and maybe we can put you back in. I'll use Canvas primarily to contact you. I don't use the pirate mail. Not pirate, we're not pirates. That was the old school. What are we, cougars? Bobcats. Bobcat email. Sorry, it's getting late. Evaluations, we can do those at some point in time. Disability statement. If you have any special needs or accommodations that need to be met, usually there's some paperwork that they file and you bring that paperwork to me. If you have any of those things, please let me know so that we can fulfill those needs. If I am doing something like this and it's too small, you want me to zoom in, just holler out. If I'm using a color you don't like, you can just holler out, but be nice about it, right?
So if we have any questions, then we email you on Canvas, right? The
Yep.
Canvas thing?
Canvas email, yep. If you don't know how to do that, let me know and I can show you guys how to do that sometime. Questions? All the rest of this stuff, no smoking, don't steal stuff, and all the rest. Any questions, concerns, or comments? That's the syllabus. Let's start talking a little bit about some statistics then. So statistics, this is, what time do we go till? 9 o'clock?
6:45.
Oh, so, but remind me, because I'll just keep on going and going and going. I'm sorry. So, usually when I tell students that, they're like, great, he's going to give us extra, more for our money. But no, you guys just want to get out, right? So I'm just kidding. So we make sure I stop around the time that I don't go too far over, okay? So statistics in critical thinking. So we're going to start with chapter 1.1. I won't be able to go through all of that today, but we will start on that so that we can get a better jump on it on Thursday. On Thursday, we'll finish that and we'll go into the types of data that we have, which is chapter 1.2, and then we'll spend a little bit of time in how we collect sample data. Today, right now, this is chapter 1.1 we'll get into. It's kind of an overview of what statistics really is in that process that we're after and why you are sitting here in that seat, okay? That's kind of what I want to get after today. Please remember, sometimes I will post all these PDF notes, so if you don't write everything down, that's okay. Sometimes you won't have time to write everything down, but if you need something, let me know and I can always go back. No, you sure? Okay. Let me know if you think of it. So this process of conducting this statistical study deals with preparation, with analysis, and with drawing some sort of conclusion. This preparation phase is pretty important. This is the beginning of a study. Analysis, this is where we're going to spend most of the class here on this analysis portion of this. There are entire classes, and some of you might encounter these, dedicated to the preparation or statistical studies. If I want to design an experiment to test a cancer medication, is that going to require a whole lot of thought and planning? It better, because people's lives are at stake, right? There are entire classes dedicated to that. If I want to study students, right, I want to make sure, see if my math lab is better than the textbook at helping you learn. Am I going to have to be very careful in how I plan that study? Yeah, there's review boards that I have to get it passed by, because I'm messing with you. You're people, right? You're people. So if I have one person do one thing and one person do another thing, I got to make sure I'm not going to harm you. Yes?
Yes.
So there's these review boards that you have to go through. Even if it's something just like what you would think is simple education, I still have to be very, very careful with that, right? If I want to study about smoking, right? So let's say I'm in this preparation phase. I want to study something about smoking, and I have about 35 people in this classroom, right? I have 35 people in this classroom. My preparation phase, if I wanted to ask a question like, do you smoke or not? Have you smoked before or not? How long did you smoke? Things like that. Could I ask those questions to all 35 of you? I could reach each and every one of you, yes? Is that possible? Would it take me a lot of time?
Yes.
If I'm a very busy person, it might be difficult for me to get to all 35 of you. Is that true? So I might instead choose a random sample, a group of 5 of you to ask that question for. Is that correct? And this is the idea of taking a sample from that and learning from that sample what might be the group's whole consensus on that. Do you understand? Okay. So the preparation phase is important. If it's all of you all, I have to know what I want to ask. I have to know what my whole group, my population is that I want to consider. If instead I wanted to consider the entire world and their smoking habits, is that different than if I just address you all here, my 35? Do I have to plan different
Yes.
and prepare different, right? I'm going to be dealing with huge numbers, people that are difficult to contact, right? There are villages that might be very hard to get through that might have smokers in there or not. True? So these are all things that I have to plan for. Once again, there are entire classes dedicated to this. We're not going to spend a ton of time talking about the preparation of it, but it is a huge part of a statistical study. Instead, my focus on this class and the approach I take is mostly learning these tools, this analysis thing, and the types of things that your other professors might ask you to do down the road. Do you understand? And I will leave this portion of it to the dedicated classes for those that you might take. And we will make some conclusions over the time after we do our particular analysis. Okay, so far? The next thing I want you to see here is this ability to execute complicated calculations. We will have to do some calculations in this class, right? We will have to do that. But the problem is, if I'm dealing with all 35 of you and I want to figure out your average age, add all your ages together and divide by how many you are, is that going to be pretty hard for me to do? I don't know about you, but if I start punching 35 numbers into here, do you think I'm going to hit a wrong button sometimes? Right? That becomes pretty difficult. However, if I only have a sample of 5 of you, am I going to be more accurate? I probably won't make a mistake, true? But if I'm going to do 35 of you, maybe I'm going to use Microsoft Excel, right? Could I handle that? I can do my data entry, verify the data, then I can type a command in there to do that. So we're going to use Excel some in this class as well. You all get the Office package for free. You can download it on your machine or you can use it in the library, but you will have to use Excel a little bit from time to time on larger data sets, right? It's not always effective to just deal with 5 people, right? So this is what happens. So keep in mind, complicated calculations. Most of the statistics, there are complicated calculations that go on behind the scenes, but there's going to be computer programs that do that for you. Things like R and SAS and SPSS, all these types of things you do. And we're going to use Excel to handle that for us, okay? And you will have to do some calculations by hand. But for the most part, this is not algebra, right? This is completely different than the algebra classes and the math classes that you're used to taking. So data, this is going to be collections of observations, whatever they have to be. If I'm doing an experiment that I'm giving you a cancer drug, Maybe my observations are going to be blood tests, right? And how concentrated certain things are in blood tests. Other observations, if I'm doing an experimental study and I'm testing my cancer medication, I might be interested in how lethargic you are, right? Are you tired? Are you worn out? Do you have energy? Things like that. If you could come up with a cancer medication where the person has a lot of energy and is strong, would that be a valuable thing? That's huge, right? Most people that get on that medicine get worn down and have to sleep so much because it wears your body down, right? It's killing things. Does that make sense? So this is another type of data that I might want to collect, how that person feels, right? That feeling, that could be an example of a data. Genders, right? Ages, locations, these are all different types of data. We'll once again talk about that in the next section, section 1.2. We'll talk about the different types of data. So once again, planning studies and experiments, obtaining data, organizing data, summarizing data, presenting data, then analyzing and interpreting those results. So here, what I want to focus on right now is you'll look at this organizing, summarizing, and presenting data. This is a big part of statistics that sometimes goes, it's the unsung hero, so to speak. Organizing data is collecting all that information, all those different types of information. If I have lots of data, if I have 1,000 people that I'm trying to study, is that going to be a lot of information? Think about you people in this room, 35 students alone. I have gender, I have age, I have how many credits you earned, how close you are to graduation, what your major is, right? That's a lot of data already. And we have thousands of students, true? Some of them are graduating, some of them are not. There are people at this school that their sole job is to collect or to organize, summarize, and present the data on you people, right? Are you passing your classes? Are you first time in college? This is critical for us. So the state legislature just changed our budgeting process where the money that we get is dependent upon how well we are doing teaching you all. So for example, if you're taking classes right here and you're close to graduation, you decide to just stop and not take any more classes. Did you graduate? Does that make me look good? That does not make me look good, right? It makes me look bad. Let's say you do go through and let's say you're working at the grocery store, nothing wrong with that. You're working at the grocery store right now. You're coming to school so that you can get this degree, right? To better your life. Is that true? That's opposite of what I did, right? What I did doesn't exist anymore. They don't want that. They can't have that. So that would look bad on me if you graduate and then you still work at the grocery store, right? Is that bad? Did I better your life with my degree? Maybe I didn't teach you something, right? So that makes me look bad. Does that make sense? So these people here making $50,000, $60,000 a year, they have to organize all the data. Tens of thousands of students, they have to organize that data, all that information, how many credits, your gender, right? We want to make sure races, everything. We got to make sure that we are equal. We are satisfying equality requirements. Summarizing that data so they can present reports, right? We are accountable to the government. We have to show them these things and then present it. Yes, this is huge. In hospitals, some of you work in hospitals or you're going to, with heart surgeries now. Do you think it's good if somebody goes in for heart surgery, then they get discharged, they go back home, they're recovering. 2 days later, they call the 911 and say, take me to the hospital. I need to go to the emergency room. Is that good? Does that reflect good on the hospital? It does not, right? So nowadays, the budgets, recently they've done this, the budgets are dependent upon Z-scores and statistics of how many of these people are getting readmitted into the hospitals. Those that have fewer readmittances like that are getting more money. The ones that are bad and they have a lot of people coming back, guess what? They get dinged on their budgets.
How does that work though with insurance?
With the yeah, so it's a complicated situation, right? So what does the hospital do? So guess what they did? They hired somebody else that directly is connected with that. So there are some people that are nurses that can no longer practice and lift bodies and deal with all that, but they've gone into the administrative jobs where their sole responsibility is to check up and follow on those patients and make sure those patients are okay. When my dad had his heart surgery recently, that lady called him 3 times a day or 2 times a day, something like that, for weeks. It's like fantastic, make sure he's all right and talking to my mom, making sure everything's cool, right? So this is kind of that follow-up thing. So what did they do? They hire somebody at $40,000, $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year to make sure that they are addressing that issue, right? Even though they have to discharge, they still want to deal with that. Does that make sense? And statistically, it's good to get them out of the hospital as fast as they can as well, right? We okay so far? Questions? 42, I think I can do one more. So population here, this is going to be the collection of all the measurements that are under consideration. All measurements that are under consideration. This is the key word for you. Earlier, if I wanted to talk about all 35 of you in the smoking habits, right, of all 35 of you, my focus is just on you 35, yes? You are my population. You are all I care about. When I randomly selected 5 of you, that becomes my sample, yes? But my whole group, my focus is the 35 of you. Then when I gave you the other example, now if statistician B wants to study the smoking habits of everybody in the world, are you the population anymore? Everything under consider, all people under consider are all people of this world. Does that make sense? So sometimes, yes, in both cases, it's people that matter here. It's people that we care about. But for the most part, it depends upon what the focus is that you want to have, what the population is going to be. Do you understand? Now, for school purposes and for test questions and homework questions, the thing that I want you to look carefully at is what? The word all, right? If I say I studied all golden retrievers and found that 30% of them have a fifth toe, I'm just making something up, have a waggy tail, I don't know. What is my population there? Is it all dogs? It's all what? Golden retrievers, right? Because that word all happens there, right? Make sense so far? So we're going to have to continue this next class. So I won't give you any homework because I didn't get to finish this, but try to figure out what you want to do for your book. I'll try to post the videos and these notes as quickly as possible. If you haven't signed to this, please make sure, thank you. Please make sure you've done so, okay? Have a great day. I'm going to close this in case you have questions. Give me one second to stop this.